and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're already part of the Sprinkle Squad. I'm so happy to see you again, and I know it's been a minute since we've talked, but I'm hoping maybe to get back to regular uploading. That's kind of my goal. I have like 5 builds that are like ready to go right now. I just have to do the editing and the voiceover, which honestly takes a lot less time than the actual build does. Since some of these builds definitely take me a little bit, especially like for instance this one, it was supposed to be a cute little small build, and then it kind of got to be bigger than I was expecting it to be. Don't get me wrong, it is still cute and I love this build so much. I basically wanted to make a crystal shop. So kind of the story behind how I decided I wanted to do this was, I think I was watching a video on YouTube, so some YouTube creator, and they said something about crystal creations, and I think they were using the actual crystal table item, and I thought to myself, I never use that. I feel like I made a build for the pack and then I never really used it again. So I decided that I wanted to use the Crystal Creations pack. So this is not a limited pack build, but that's kind of what inspired it. Honestly, it's a lot of Crystal Creations kind of mixed with Realm of Magic, because I decided I wanted to do like a magic crystal shop was kind of the idea. Like I imagine maybe, you know, your spellcasters come and get what they need for whatever it is that they're doing, if that makes sense. This is actually in Glimmerbrook. So I typically don't actually build here because I feel like a lot of issues with lighting and things like that, even though I like the scenery here. There's also not many lots here, I guess, is the main thing. And also several of them are pretty big. Like I think this is one of the smaller ones that are actually in this neighborhood. So anyways, we're building here today, and I really do love the way this turned out. I basically just wanted it to be this like walking up to this magical like little shop in the woods was kind of the feel we were going for, even though there's basically a parking lot in front of it, but that's just the look I was going for. And I ended up actually making this a retail like residential lot, so I do actually end up having a house in the back, so they are like 2 separate buildings, which I thought ended up being really cute. And I honestly, when I was doing this, I ended up getting into debug. So I wanted to get some landscaping and stuff out of debug, and then I was like, ooh, what if I put a pond? And then I ended up adding, just honestly layering things everywhere. Like I think I ended up getting this like broken pier looking item out of debug and putting it over here on the pond. The pond ended up turning into like a little stream that goes down the rest of the lot. I mean, this place definitely went through transformation while I was building it, and the build took a lot longer than I was expecting it. Like I wasn't expecting this build video to be like 35 minutes long. That was not like my thought when I started it, but it just kind of ended up going that way, and I think it ended up being really cute. I actually ended up using a cauldron over to the left as almost like a planter, and your sim can't really get to a lot of that because I blocked it off like with a pathway. I mean, even if they could get over there, I don't think they could get very far since there's just stuff everywhere. I thought maybe putting some bikes and some brooms over here, kind of like that's, you know, people bring their brooms with them, you know, like that's how they traveled here. I thought that would be like a really cute touch to have. I ended up putting a bunch of like those big crystal gem pieces from Realm of Magic. I put those out here, and like the floating light orbs, I end up putting those around everywhere. This ends up being a really packed lot. It ends up being 122,000 simoleons. So it's not a inexpensive lot either, especially since it is only a 1 bedroom 2 bathroom, and the only reason it's 2 bathrooms is because there's a bathroom in this shop as well. But I think it ended up being so cute, and this has been play tested, so your sim shouldn't have any issues getting around or using any of the things. I definitely was sure to play test everything because there's just stuff everywhere, and I want to make sure your sim could get around. And this is already up on my Sims 4 gallery under my ID, Spice and Sprinkles, all one word, all lowercase, and down in the description if you want to see it written out. And like I said, it is not a limited pack build. There's a lot of stuff in here. It just has a lot of items from Realm of Magic and has that like vibe to it, if that makes sense. And I think it just It really did come out very cute and magical looking, especially at night. I think there was just a bunch of lights everywhere, and I think that really helped a lot. I feel like I would keep this lot in the night, like in the nighttime. Like, that sounds so silly. I feel like I would keep it dark. You know how if you played Animal Crossing and you can like time travel, and so you can have like the island in a certain season and things like that, whenever you want it to be there. I feel like I would just always want this to be nighttime, like when I would be on this lot, which obviously is not super realistic given the assumption is maybe that your Sim's actually living here, so you would you would have to like change the dime like constantly. But I do think it ended up looking really nice at night. And I did put this little like truck out front. I think that is from Cottage Living, and what I ended up doing was filling it up with a bunch of crystals. And I even put what looks like a mine cart out there with more crystals in it. I like the idea that maybe the shop owner goes out and like collects all the crystals, you know what I mean? And that's their work truck. They bring everything back in, which, so if some of it seems a little random, that's my thought process as to what I did here. And I think it turned out really nicely. And then just honestly, when I was doing this, I wasn't really paying attention to how I was going to lay out the inside of this build. I literally was just putting on all these windows and stuff, and I was like, I hope I can figure it out later, which I do. It does work out, and I think it ends up looking really cute in there. And just putting in, honestly, just all of this vegetation, just all these bushes, and then like I keep adding more. So even later on in the build, when I've moved on to the back and everything, I still like, I feel like go back to the front and add more stuff that I find, just because I feel like it looks really nice that way when you slowly layer the landscaping, especially, well, if you're someone who likes having a bunch of like lush landscaping. That's kind of the way I do it. I just kind of start with stuff and then just keep adding more and more things. And then I try not to use too many plants, if that makes sense. Like I try to use the same ones like over and over again, so it's not too overwhelming. Although like with this build, I mean, I did that, but I used a lot of bushes and things to begin with. So using the same ones over and over again just didn't really like help in terms of it not being a little bit chaotic. But I did put these Riviera Retreat rocks in here with a little fountain. I thought that was just so cute. Don't ask me how you would actually service the fountain or how you would actually deal with any of the landscaping needs here. It's a good thing we don't actually have to deal with that, unlike in other games where you actually had to take care of your landscaping. So luckily in The Sims, we can just make it look like The Sims 4. We can just make it look really pretty, and then your Sims don't ever have to worry about it, which is really nice. I feel like it's the same thing with pools. We don't actually have to take care of them, although, and I know in some of the other games we needed to. And I don't know if there's even any open grass in this lot. By the time I finish, I end up putting just stuff kind of all over the place. I really just wanted there to be just things everywhere, like we've got little things full of flowers. And I went into debug and found just a bunch of crystals, like a ton of them all over the place, and adding them into, like I said, I had that cart out front, and then as well with the truck here. I think I may have put like a tool of some kind. Like I think I might have put a shovel or something in the back of the truck as well. I can't remember if I kept it or not, because I think I had some issues with it like clipping. But I really did try to find as many crystals as I could, different metals, things like that, which of course if you want to use this, and I do actually put a bunch of stuff inside the shop as well. So if you want to get rid of the ones in the shop and like, you know, find your own, that kind of thing, of course you can do so. But I just felt like I wanted to decorate with all of the crystals and everything. And I think the shovel I use, I think that's like a snow shovel or something. That's like not an actual shovel I feel like you would use for this, but it looked cute nonetheless. So I kind of put that in there, and just, I think there's like a little toolbox I put in there. I think that might be from the workshop kit. I'm trying to remember. Like I said, I got a lot of stuff out of debug, so sometimes it's hard to tell where I got some of these things from, or I found little pots and put random flowers in them and that kind of thing. But I think it just adds a lot to this space, being able to see all the different layering with all the different flowers and colors and all of that kind of good stuff. And I will say, originally when I play tested it, my sim did have an issue getting in the door. So you can see right now I've kind of got like a window box that's on the door. I was kind of hoping the sim would just walk through it, kind of like if you put a like robe on the back of a bathroom door, your sim will just kind of walk through. But the sim did not walk through, so I had to replace it with a debug flower box. So you'll notice that it does look, it's a different flower box, but your sim can walk through it. So the key being that it's actually a debug item, because your sim basically ignores those items. So like I'm working on a build as well right now that's like a rooftop city like nightclub. And so I took a bunch of buildings out of debug and used it to create like a little city block kind of thing. But since they're debug, your sim will just want to walk like right through the buildings. So I think I might have to work on that, but that's just a build that I've got, that I'm still working on. That's definitely going to be a bigger build. But like I said, I do have several kind of like ready to go. I don't have early access to the new pack or anything like that. So, but although this is, I guess, kind of fairy-y, so I feel like it kind of fits in with the new pack that we're getting. I don't even remember what day it's coming out on, but I'm sure the EA app will let me know. I feel like every time I go in, it's like, have you pre-ordered? Have you bought it? Have you gotten the stuff and the things? And no, I have not. I tried to pre-order it, but I need to like do my security code for my card again, and I didn't remember what it was, so I just haven't felt like going downstairs and getting it yet. So I'll do it eventually. Maybe it's the day it actually comes out. And I will say I haven't watched any videos yet of other creators reviewing or doing any gameplay with it, so I honestly don't know a lot. I didn't watch any of the live streams, so I'm curious to see what everything is. I feel like this time I've actually just not watched like build by overviews or anything like that. I just want to be surprised maybe this time, and I guess maybe that way I can form my own opinion about it, if that makes sense. I feel like I used to do build by overviews on packs, but I always felt like since I didn't have early access, everybody else had already done that, so everybody already had like their own opinions made, if that makes sense, and people have already shared their thoughts, and there's just so many other videos out there, so I just kind of go straight to building with the pack. So let me know if you're interested in something like that, if you'd rather see me go through and do like a build by overview, since obviously that's what I usually use. I don't do a lot of casts and things like that. I have been playing lately. I did do a rags to riches like in my free time. I guess all of this is in my free time, but when I wasn't making content, I was doing a rags to riches, which actually, I don't know, I really do like a rags to riches. It's funny, I was doing that with my mom. We tried, and she really, really hates the rags to riches. I like the challenge, but I think she just likes to be able to go ahead and build or do whatever she wants to do and not, have to scrape for money. But I don't know, sometimes it's kind of fun to play that way. I do know even with the new pack, I know there's already a bunch of videos out already with rags to riches for the Enchanted by Nature, so I'm curious to see. And I think, as it turned out, is that the plant sims get an update with the new pack, I believe. Like I said, I haven't been looking at a bunch of stuff. Honestly, I probably need to just stay off social media. Like, honestly, I haven't been doing voiceovers and things like that because I've just kind of, I don't know, I've been feeling kind of down. I think just all of the news in the world, I'm just, I'm not feeling 100%, which I think that's true of a lot of people right now. So I guess on that note, take care of yourself, do what you need to do. And I feel like that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm hoping that I can get back into actually doing voiceovers because I do just have a bunch of videos like ready to go. I just need to actually do the voiceovers for them. But anyways, just doing the little like residential area back here, it ends up being so cute. I don't know why I just decided to go with these really rich colors. Honestly, I think it's these windows, and these windows always remind me of Beauty and the Beast every time I see them, and I just think they're so pretty. I feel like every time I end up doing some sort of magical build and using those windows, I feel like that's the swatch I always gravitate towards. And so I ended up using it for the residential areas. So I kind of took that as the inspiration for the interior, even though I feel like the exterior, there's just a bunch of color everywhere. So it just, like, it looks like it matches, but kind of not at the same time. But obviously, if you want to download this and change any of it, you are, of course, more than welcome to do so. But I think this ended up being a cute little tiny home back here for your Sims. Of course, you can have 1 or 2 Sims in here. You can, of course, expand or do whatever you want to in this space. And just trying to make sure I can squeeze everything in here. And I really do love that growing together rug. I think it just worked out really well here. I feel like I used a lot of the other swatches. I don't think I used this swatch super often. I think because of the red and black, it's very harsh and very particular, so it takes a certain kind of build for it to match, but I think it worked out really well in this space. And then putting in, I was gonna say like a little kitchen, but I think it ended up being a pretty decently sized kitchen given the space we had here. And I really did try to use as much of the Realm of Magic stuff as I could, but I don't know, I wasn't really feeling the appliances from Realm of Magic, so I ended up not using it, but ended up just like, swapping things around. Of course, it is a full kitchen, like your Sim doesn't make any sacrifices living in this smaller home back here, but just adding in also a little dining space as well. I think it's 2 seats, and I say I think because, like I said, I did this a while ago. Like I built this before we even found out about the new expansion pack, so like it has been a minute since I've been done with this. I actually built it before my last video as well. It's just my last one was just a little bit shorter and I didn't feel like doing a longer voiceover at the time. So I kind of just held off on this. And I guess it worked out because, like I said, it kind of matches the fairy aesthetic, to be honest. And just kind of squeezing that in here over here. And I promise your Sim can get around. Like your Sim, like, won't have any issues here. And I think I do end up swapping out for a smaller coffee table here. Yeah, that life and death one, just because I wanted to make sure your Sim could get around. And it just felt like I loved the bigger coffee table, but it just took up a lot of space here. And of course, it's just kind of for fun anyways, since your Sim doesn't really use a coffee table, if that makes sense. I mean, they'll put dishes on it and then forget about it and then they get smelly. But other than that, I don't feel like they really use them. And of course, using that hanging basket that we got with the kitchen clutter kit, I love it so much. I feel like I've used it in a lot of my builds recently, or at least in the ones that will be coming up on the channel, because I just remember using it a lot. And then just kind of squeezing a little dresser area over there, which those trunks do function as a dresser. I believe they came with werewolves, if I'm not mistaken. I don't use them super often, but I think it ended up looking really cute. And your Sim can actually get around and get to that door, which was a little bit surprising. I felt like maybe your Sim would have a little bit of an issue, but actually using the Crystal Creations shelf there as a nightstand works really well. I know I've done that before because it's nice and small and it doesn't take up floor space. So I feel like it's easier for your Sim to get around if you've got really tight areas, especially around the bed. So you can still have 2 nightstands available to your Sims. So that's kind of my go-to thing, is to maybe use a shelf instead if I've got a space that's really small. And then just adding in those hanging lanterns, which I thought ended up being really cute there in the corner, just adding a little extra something. I feel like this build ended up being, or like this, I guess the residential building ended up being, nice and cluttered, not in like a overly cluttered way, but like in a really lived in kind of way. And then also using the Crystal Creations wallpaper in here as well, which I believe I use the blue version in the actual crystal shop, which, so I feel like all the swatches we got with that pack were very like gem colored, which I guess makes a whole lot of sense. And I end up going with like a blue like kind of color, sapphire-y kind of color in the actual crystal shop. And I did put items in there from the businesses and hobbies pack as well, so you can just like sell your items or sell crystals or sell whatever. I ended up putting like the big bookcases in there as well, because I do love the bookcases we got with Crystal Creations. They're just kind of large, and I will say that I wish, they're full of books, which is nice, but at the same time, since I do like a variety of clutter and things like that, it's not as personalized for every build, if that makes sense, since there's not a whole lot of places to put things in it, and it feels just very repetitive because of the way the books are in it. Although it does give me a library kind of feel, which I have thought about doing a really cool like 2-story like library kind of thing, maybe even in a house. Like I feel like I've seen those videos of people like, their dream house would have this like large 2-story library that they can go and like read in a reading nook kind of thing, which personally I don't read a lot. That's not like something, I know some people do that and it really relaxes them and everything, but it is not really my thing. And I did have a period of time in my life where I did read a lot of books. Like that was what I did. I just haven't done that lately. I've tried to get back into it, but I don't know. It just hasn't been like something I've enjoyed recently. But I do love the idea of having a like home library. Like I feel like that would be really cool. And I also wanted to mention that in this kitchen, your sim can cook on top of that cutting board that came with the kitchen clutter kit. Again, I don't exactly remember the name of it, but you know what I'm talking about. But the cutting board, and I don't know if it's because I have like move objects on. I will say that I've not tested that without move objects. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. And I only say that because it's like, yeah, they basically, I guess they treat it almost like a debug item. Like they just kind of ignore it. Like if they've got a bowl on the counter, it kind of sinks in. Like it just, like it's not even, the cutting board's not even there. So I don't know. Actually, if you know, let me know. Does that work without any cheats on? Because I am curious. So I just want to mention that since your sim may not want to use the corner, since I did put a bunch of clutter in it. But like I said, it was tested, so your sim shouldn't have an issue cooking. But I'm hoping it's not a move objects kind of thing for that cutting board. And then in this bathroom here, I did really love that triple picture frame, but it was like all the vampires, and I was like, that's not quite like what I want. I don't really want Vlad in the bathroom. Which honestly, that's kind of a funny statement to begin with. Like, and I think I do end up having to move that plant or something. Oh no, I think it was the light. I remember when I play tested it, like I said, it was a little while ago, but I think the light gave me an issue. I don't know why, but the sim just was like, I can't. So I think I end up having to move it or change it. So if you notice that as well, it's because the sim couldn't really get around there. And I ended up putting like crystals in that little planter and everything. I kind of put them everywhere. Like there are planters all over the place. And I do end up putting a cool place to hang out, like patio area back there as well for your sim. And I feel like, I'm trying to remember. I mean, it is on the gallery. What did I upload it as? Is it a retail residential lot? I can't remember. But of course, if you download it, you can change the type of lot it is and actually assign the spaces properly as well. So then your guests or your people like shopping here wouldn't use your actual like residential home. But I figured you could also just lock the back door as well, so the Sims couldn't get out there and have access to your patio and things like that, since the patio and all isn't like a room. I don't think you can really code it as like being part of the residential home, if that makes sense. But I really did try to pack like everything from this pack in here, and I definitely ended up moving stuff around kind of all over the place. I think I ended up moving one of those like curio cabinet kind of looking display cabinet things by the back door and actually putting in a businesses and hobbies, like one of the big display case. I think I end up putting that there instead, and I do end up filling it up with a bunch of crystals like I mentioned earlier, so of course you can swap that out if you need to. But that life and death rug actually looks so good with the Crystal Creations wallpaper. And I think it's kind of funny, I made the bathroom really big, and I didn't really mean to. My intention was that it would have like multiple bathrooms in it, if that makes sense. But then using like the toilet stalls didn't, like, I always forget how big those things are. They're so huge. And so anyways, it ends up being just like a 1-person bathroom and just like awkwardly large for a bathroom. But I do end up decorating it. I think it turns out to be cute, but it was just kind of funny. I kind of put it off once I figured out that the toilets didn't really fit in there like the way I was hoping. I just always forget because I don't do, not residential lots, community lots. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't really do community lots very often, so I always forget because I feel like those are usually the lots you would use that on versus, you know, doing like a residential lot. But I thought maybe having a little music player, a record player over in the corner would be really nice. And I believe that one is from the Secret Sanctuary kit. And then just adding in, I went with these chandeliers from Life and Death. No, that's not Life and Death. That's Businesses and Hobbies. The chandelier, I believe, from Business and Hobbies. Like, it ended up being so cute. I actually really love that chandelier. Maybe it's because all the other chandeliers we have in the game, I feel like are either very modern, which is their own look, or like very luxurious looking, if that makes sense, or they're from like vampires, and so they're very gothic looking, which all of which have their place in terms of like what builds they would look good in, but I guess they're just not builds that I typically do. So I'm really excited about that chandelier. I feel like I've used that very often as well. And then I actually ended up putting some tarot cards over here because I thought that kind of went with the kind of mystical, magical kind of thing we were going for here in this build, and then just adding in a bunch of stuff all over the place. I just really wanted this to be a cute place with little fairy lights and just stuff kind of everywhere. And you can see, so I put the bookcases in here, but I don't know if you see what I mean. It's just like, since it's all the same color and there's just like so many books, it's very repetitive that I just don't use them super often. So I definitely had to break them up with other colors and other things here. And I don't know, I'm assuming you can't really sell the items. I don't know. I know that like before we had Businesses and Hobbies, you could literally tag which items are for sale, but like in Businesses and Hobbies, you use the different certain display cases and things for them to know whether they can buy it and all. I don't know if you can combine those two systems, so I don't know if you can even sell the stuff I put on the bookcase, but let me know. Obviously I just don't do a bunch of gameplay so it's hard for me to remember what you can actually do in the game, and I do end up putting a bunch of jewelry in here. And like I said, if you want to get rid of all of that, then you can, of course, feel free to do so. That's totally up to you, and, you know, fill it with your own stuff. I just didn't want to leave it blank. I like the idea of filling it up, if that makes sense, and then just kind of putting in the gems as well. And I will say that I do know that runner I've got, those two pieces are from not Life and Death, from Businesses and Hobbies. And you can, I think, set it to where the stuff on it is just display. It's not for sale. So if you do want stuff to be for sale or not, you can kind of decide and set that accordingly. And then just kind of putting little crystals and things everywhere. I'm pretty sure, yeah, we've got like little crystal skulls and the frog and all kinds of stuff. I really was just kind of looking for things that I felt like would look good here. And then since I was also doing the Realm of Magic, so putting some potions out as well. So I guess this could be like a crystal and potion shop situation. You can kind of make it whatever you want to, of course. You can get rid of all of that stuff and sell, cotton candy if you want to, if you just like the build but don't want to actually deal with crystals and things like that. So just kind of adding stuff like really all over the place. And then, like I said, the bathroom is pretty large. It's like a normal sized bathroom, like if you were going to use a shower and everything, but I didn't necessarily want to put a shower or anything in here. But you can see literally that toilet stall basically took up the whole entire room. I was like, oh no. At that point I had already finished everything else, so I was like, okay. But then using a combination of like a counter piece and a display cabinet from Crystal Creations kind of is almost a storage space. I think I put some like toilet paper and stuff up there. So, because I imagine, have you ever been to like different stores and things and used the restroom, and there's like, they have stacks of the, toilet paper and everything, and you can grab more if you need it. That's kind of like what I was thinking of. Of course, like in those places, the toilet paper is like individually wrapped and stuff, and we're doing the best we can. But I thought also it was really cute having that little thing. I imagine it's like lotions and stuff. I don't know. Like, it just very, It's very hospitable. Like, it's a very nice bathroom for a store. But I guess if you're going to be in the middle of the woods, like, you can kind of just do whatever you want to. I imagine it's not, like, super busy. I do end up putting the crystal charging thing out there as well, so your sim can actually charge whatever crystals they do. And I put a cauldron out here, which I'm pretty sure I end up leaving, because I remember being a little bit back and forth about like what I wanted in there, because it was a small space, and then just adding in like a big patio area. And you can see kind of that little broken pier that I was talking about earlier. I end up just extending out the pond to like a stream to go down the rest of the lot, which I think ended up being really nice. And then just adding in a bunch of flowers and everything everywhere. And I thought it'd be really nice to have a little like a little fire pit out here. I was about to be like a flower pit. No, it's a fire pit. And I thought it would just be, I don't know, I just imagine it being really cozy out here at night. Maybe once you like close the shop, like you and your spellcaster friends or creator friends can just come and hang out on your patio. And then of course adding in a bunch of vines, because you know we need it, we need the extra stuff, we need the vegetation, we need it everywhere. I wanted it to feel like, you know, this build's been there for a while, and it really has, like, all the stuff has really filled in. And I feel like I've been doing landscaping. I say landscaping loosely, like we redid our flower bed in front of my house and like planted our own stuff, and that's been a whole saga, and it like just on its own. But it's funny because it's like I cleared out this big flower bed, and then we put like some new bushes and stuff, but they're like so small. So it just kind of looks funny. But you know, I have to remember that they're gonna get bigger and like fill in. So I just imagine all this stuff's been here for a while, which so made me think of my own flower bed. That like the bushes are just kind of like tiny, but they're gonna get bigger and fill in. And it was so funny. We planted a flowering bush out in the flower bed, and it actually just got its first flower the other day, and I was so excited. I've talked about this before on the channel. I'm not someone who does a lot of planting, gardening. I don't have plants in my house. I can't keep them alive. I mean, I'm not good with it. So like what we're planting outside is really stuff that we're hoping, you know, we plant it once and then, you know, it's really just kind of trimming it and just taking care of it. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to like replant anything. But it was just so exciting to see our plant actually like have a flower. I just thought it was really funny. I was just so excited. I came inside and I was talking to my husband. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a flower. We have to go look at it. Like, come look at it. Which is, I feel kind of out of my normal character because I just don't do any of that stuff. But, you know, it is kind of exciting. You know, you put a lot of effort into it, and then actually seeing it be successful. And also because we've had issues with discovering our yard is we have a very wet yard apparently like underground is just like so just wet. I mean, like there's like I feel like there's straight up like water. I mean, and so we've had a few plants that didn't survive because we didn't know. We had no idea that we were gonna have these issues. So, you know, we've had to change and like plant other things, and like so it's just been a big trial and error. So like I said, once we're done and actually have stuff that does well in our flower bed, we're gonna be really happy, and then just have to take care of it. So it's just kind of exciting to actually see a plant doing well. Maybe it's just me, you know, maybe if someone else planted them it would have been fine, but I don't know. It's been a thing. But that was very exciting, and because I love the idea of having a bunch of different flowers, but I just know that I'm not someone who's going to want to go watering and taking care of them like they need to be taken care of, if that makes sense. I rather just plant something that can just kind of exist. And I think it's funny because like all of this stuff is so flowering, and I feel like would take a lot of work to actually keep up and keep it looking really nice. But anyways, sorry for the total random aside about my flower bed in the front yard that we've been, you know, trying to transform. But since we moved in, I guess it's been not quite a year and a half ago, but it's a new house, and so the plants that were outside were basically just ones the builders put out there, and they didn't even plant them right. so they weren't doing well. So we just felt like we needed to take them out and do something different, which maybe they weren't doing well because the soil was so wet and we just had no idea. Like we even bought a little like thing to actually test the water level in the soil because we were just having so many issues over in like this my whole I feel like the whole front yard is like that. But anyways, I'm not gonna talk about it anymore. It's fine. We're gonna talk about the build. Just adding in a bunch of rocks and just more stuff. I wanted it to be so packed like all the way around. Like I said earlier, I feel like there's no actual just grass showing, and hopefully all the terrain paint comes through when you get it off the gallery. I know even just like leaving lots and coming back, it deletes that. I really wish they'd fix that. Like that needs to be on the laundry list and that needs to be addressed. I don't think that's been fixed yet. Obviously, if it has, please let me know, but I don't think it has. But I feel like it's definitely an issue, especially if you're a builder. And I mean, not even if you're just a builder, if you're a Sims player, like you're either building and it happens or you're playing and it happens. So I don't know. I just feel like they need to fix that, but we'll see. We'll see if, that ever really happens. But just adding more seating and all of that kind of good stuff out here and putting that terrain paint around that I was just talking about that hopefully doesn't disappear. And like I said, at night it just looks so cute. It is honestly my favorite. And just like I said, adding in some extra lighting, just making sure everything looks really good when the sun goes away. What am I trying to say? It doesn't matter. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And I hope you have a really sweet day. Bye, everybody.